All right, guess we're streaming. It's been a while. Back from PAX. Let's see, start streaming. Not going to record this.
I don't get paid enough for this. I'm hungry.
Pulling up the chat.
Hopefully 0 people. Yeah.
Stream looks good.
0 people. Excellent.
All right. I guess I got an opening bit.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple opening bits. A bunch of opening bits. It's Monday, April 16th, 2018. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are talking about destroying data.
Mm-mm-mm.
All right, save that, and we're good. So I had a coworker who was in town from London this week, and I got to tell him that he basically got to experience the entirety of New York Spring.
Okay.
Because it feels like this has only been happening in the last 3-ish years, but I feel like every year it's just like winter, and then suddenly it's 80 degrees, and then it goes like a little bit, and then it's just summer.
Well, everyone talks about climate change, right? Oh, the average temperature of the world is getting warmer, right? Well, that's not been my experience. My experience is simply that the start and end of the seasons has been shifted later, right? So
it's not just that. The seasons themselves are more variable.
Summer starts later and it goes longer, and then winter starts later and goes longer. So really, it's just the season moved. They got pushed ahead in the year. They don't line up with the months in the same way.
But it's not just that. It is more extreme. The changes are more extreme on a day-to-day basis.
The point
than
is that it's cold, and even though other people say climate change is bad, I feel like I want to burn more coal until it's 80 degrees every day.
All right,
Then
Lewis
I'll
Black,
stop
the
burning coal.
90s called. They want their stand-up routine back.
I'm just saying. It's cold. I'm not happy.
But I can say that because I ski, so I like the nuances of weather. Like
we should burn coal until no one can ski anymore. We'll actually save lives, even though the bad weather will kill some people.
I think the bad weather already kills more people than skiing ever has.
The people will not be able to ski and will thus be saved.
Plus, we can ski indoors. They're skiing in Dubai.
That's safer than skiing on a mountain.
Probably not, because
there's no trees and rocks in indoor skiing.
Yeah, but indoor skiing is pretty much only people who don't know how to ski, which is the primary source of ski injuries. People who don't know how to skiing.
Mm-hmm.
But so it got crazy hot. But so I was getting to my ski thing.
It wasn't crazy hot. It was slightly chilly.
Slightly chilly. It was 79 degrees.
Slightly chilly.
I think you've just turned into an old man. I think you're permanently there.
Mm-hmm.
You're old man thermo. What are you gonna do when you're 90? It has to be like 110 or you're freezing, putting on a sweater.
Well, all the people who are currently in Florida who are no good will be dead because I'm younger than them. So then I can move to Florida and perfectly fine.
But
Florida will all the Florida men will be dead by then.
If I fly out,
then Florida will suddenly be a good place.
If I fly out west or go way north, I can just ski. It doesn't really matter. But in terms of like upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire skiing, the difference of even a couple degrees a month and a half or so in either direction drastically changes everything. And I can definitely say that the last 3 years have been very difficult ski seasons because we're just over that threshold for at least like upstate New York and edging into parts of New Hampshire and Vermont.
No, I don't give a shit. It's good for me.
For now, till New York floods.
It flooded today.
Yeah.
I was fine. I'm on the 3rd floor.
The funniest thing about that is that I got the alert, and of course my phone doesn't make noise because I'm an adult, but pretty much I'm on this floor with like 1,000+ other people. So all morning, every like 5 minutes, someone's phone would make that emergency alert sound, and then you get this scattered delay as one by one, everyone's phone makes the noise.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm the only person on Earth who just keeps their phone always in vibrate mode no matter what.
When there's a real emergency that actually warrants the use of that system, then what's going to happen?
It'll vibrate, and I'll know, because I knew anyway. My watch told me.
I meant on your floor of 1,000 people.
It'll go dee, the same thing.
And then everyone looks at their phone, and then what?
And then they do whatever the thing says. So far, all the thing said was, parts of Queens they don't care about flooded, yo. Stay off the highways on the edges of Manhattan.
Yeah, what's it going to say when island of Manhattan surrounded by fire?
I feel like at that point I'm already on my bike with the rabbits in a backpack, like making my way out of town.
You're not gonna make it through the firewall.
Depends on how high that firewall is. The Staten Island Bridge is pretty high. The Verrazano Narrows.
You're on Manhattan and you're inside the fire ring.
How tall is the fire ring? Is it over the Queensboro Bridge? Because if it's not, I could walk over the top of the Queensboro Bridge. There's a little path there.
You'd get cooked.
Depends on how hot this fire is, how high it goes.
That bridge is going to be a nice grill. We'll get some rim, egg, and cheese.
Or I'll walk through the East River Tunnel. Fire's not in there and outside.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You'll get.
I got plans for everything.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Tunnel
in the
collapse,
news,
though.
Scott has a pretty good news.
What's my news? Oh.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about Internet of Things and how, there's a lot of terms going on these days, like cloud and Internet of Things. And
Yep.
we always talk about cloud actually just means someone else's computer. If you ever see an article that uses the word cloud a lot, replace every instance of cloud with someone else's computer, and it will make perfect sense. That's all cloud is, right?
Yep.
Internet of Things simply means thing that doesn't look like a computer that is a computer.
Yep.
For example, if you have one of those refrigerators with a screen on it or whatever, guess what? That refrigerator is a computer. And if it happens to connect to the internet, there's a lot of computers that don't connect to the internet, right? Like your car is a computer.
Or like the computer in Mission Impossible 1.
Right. It's a computer that doesn't connect to the internet. But if you have a computer in a thing that normally doesn't look like a computer, but it connects to the internet, now you have Internet of Things, right? Computers hidden in places you didn't know.
Now, usually it gets a little more nuanced in that I'd say 99% of the time, people specifically mean something that does a physical thing in the real world, like tracks the food in your fridge or lets you turn off a light bulb remotely.
But it's like a smart TV is the Internet of Things, right?
Yeah.
It's a computer. That's your TV now has a computer attached to it, hidden inside.
Because as a technology professional, what Internet of Things means to me is that thing does not get updates.
Right. It's basically
the device.
Right. And this is the main problem with them is you have basically full-on computers. They got CPUs. They got RAM.
They're connected to your Wi-Fi probably.
Really, as long as you have a CPU, RAM, and a network card, that's enough to do damage. And a power source. That's enough to do damage.
Yep.
Right? Any CPU with RAM and a network card can now do evil. It can send spam emails. It can attempt to hack other computers. It could
turn your light switch on and off again so rapidly that it literally starts a fire in your house.
It could try to send SSH, connections. It can do anything that a CPU can do, which is all the things.
Well,
so
it can do anything that can be accomplished by some combination of adding ones and zeros together.
Right. So like those fancy thermostats people have, or what else? Oh, those
malware. Mail me 1 Bitcoin, or the temperature goes up by 1 degree per hour.
The garage door openers with Wi-Fi.
Mail me 1 Bitcoin, or I break your car.
Right. All these sorts of devices that have an internet connection and a CPU and RAM hidden in them are computers that are not being properly taken care of. The people who have them don't recognize them as computers. And if you connect them to the internet, somebody can hijack them, connect to them, use them in ways they weren't intended to be used. Yep. You're literally, not even a joke, your garage door opener could be made to like send spams or host child porn on its meager storage or who knows what.
Yep.
Mine bitcoins.
So there's a concept that's a little deeper than a firewall, because a firewall is just some rules around the network traffic, but the computer on the other side is still connected to the network. Mm-hmm. Like it's still, people are connecting to it effectively directly to do stuff, unless you have a fancy like layer 7 firewall. But the air gap is an important concept in IT security. If something is so important that like it's serious, like capital S serious, usually those are systems that are not connected to the internet at all.
Yep.
There is no path, there is no IP anywhere that will get between that computer and the internet.
Yep. Like in our IT, we had this, I took a computer security class, and nothing in that lab, in that room, there was a bunch of racks and a whole bunch of tables with like patches on them, and all these desktops in that room at all the desks.
Yep.
But there was no internet connection in that room. If we wanted to bring software into the room, we had to go outside with a USB stick, load it up, bring it in.
USB stick, son. I used a zip disk for that.
I used USB sticks because it was 2004 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I took that the equivalent class in 2000.
Yeah. The point is, we had to bring software from the outside, right?
It's like the Mission Impossible computer, or say the computer that launches nukes.
A lot of times you just bring laptops in that are already loaded and plug
them
in.
The computer that launches nukes even if you have the best internet security and firewalls on Earth, it's probably safer to just not actually have a connection to it.
Anyway, so, usually, practically speaking, this usually comes up in casual conversation because I can tell people, hey, you shouldn't be getting those, boxes, connected to your TV. You should be getting an HTPC that you can update and has real software. You should not be getting, if you have a smart TV, don't connect it to the internet and don't use any of the smart features. Get an HTPC, right?
Yep.
This is the usual conversation we have because I'm talking about the insecurity of Internet of Things stuff, right? Because those, it's not getting software updates. You don't know what the hell software is on there. You've connected it to your network. You're putting everything at risk, connecting some strange computer to your network. But here we go. We have a real story. This really happened. It's not sci-fi. It's not some example. Well, it is an example. It's a real example. This thing actually fucking happened. Some casino had in the fish tank that was at the front of the casino as a decoration, because, casinos got fancy decorations.
Yep.
A internet-controlled thermometer thermostat thing to control and monitor the temperature in the fish tank. But this wasn't just a thermometer like mercury in a stick. It was a computer with an internet connection that connected with Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Right? You just don't think of it as a computer. You just, you think of it as a fucking thermometer. So, of course, somebody hijacked that, and now that's a computer that was on the casino's computer network, and they went in through that very insecure thermostat, connected to the casino's other computers that had real things.
Now, I didn't look up the details of this
money.
particular thermostat, but generally the reason why these Internet of things are so dangerous in even these contexts is that you connect it to your internal network, but it's not directly accessible from the outside. Kind of like with Skype back in the day. These Internet of Things devices have to work when idiots are involved. So they are good at NAT busting and getting out to the internet to connect to some server somewhere to do their biz.
Right. A lot of them are like these, like, for example, the NAS I have, the Synology.
Yep.
Right? It's like, it connects to like this Synology stuff that's way out on the real internet, like to help you if you don't know how to do LAN stuff in your house.
Yeah, that shit's all turned off on mine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can go to find.synology.com and then it helps you. That thing that's on the real internet helps you find something on your LAN. It's like, no, LAN only. we're not having my NAS that's on my local network talk to anything that's outside.
So people will install these Internet of Things on an internal secure network.
Like someone will set up a webcam.
Those are the worst.
Security webcam, and then in order to see what the webcam sees, you go to a website that's on the public internet, and now everyone can see everything that's going on in your house.
And even if you didn't open your firewall,
as opposed to connecting directly to it from wherever you are.
Yep. So if anything on that server, that web thing that's letting this webcam do its thing, is compromised at all, you can get into the webcam and do whatever on the internal network.
So someone used this thermometer, they hijacked at that, and then now they're they had a connection. They were able to browse the casino's internal computer network, and they found a database that was not so secure, and that database had all the info about all the high rollers in the casinos. So, okay.
This is fun stuff. Now, this is not the crazier exploits that people are talking about using to get at completely air-gapped systems, meaning
it has nothing to do with it.
No, but that's a similar but more interesting story.
Yes, there are ways, depending on what's going on, you can try to hack into systems that aren't connected to the internet, but it's extremely difficult.
Yep.
The point is, there are things that are computers. You need to be able to recognize what is and what is not a computer.
And in the future, everything is a computer.
If something is a computer, do not put it on your network unless you have somehow separated it or something, and make sure don't let it connect to the internet if it doesn't have to. You can get one of those internet connectable garage door openers and never connect it to the internet and just open and close your garage door without any Wi-Fi.
Yep. Or if you're going to use its internet stuff, at least put it on a segregated Wi-Fi network that doesn't have any access to the rest of your network.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, here's this thing on its own, this smart TV.
It might start sending spam, but
it connects to the internet and does whatever. The worst it can do is use my bandwidth. It can't hurt any of my other real computers or anything. It's all on its own. It might as well have its own private internet connection that it shares with nothing else. And if it becomes horrible and uses my bandwidth, then I'll disconnect it, and I can take advantage of its features in the meantime.
So in some other news...
But ideally, just don't connect to the internet in the first place. You want that problem.
Yep. So in some other news, I just saw this story. I remember seeing some rumblings about this, and it's kind of interesting. I'm going to summarize because the details are pretty technical, and they rely on some understanding of the plain old television set, like the plain old television, the plain old telephony networks, like old phones.
POTS.
Yeah, POTS. So basically, the way phones, like phone calls work in the US is actually very well defined. And modern internet-based telephony largely fakes a lot of that stuff or translates between that stuff. So, like, for example, in the old days, if you picked up a phone, and by the old days, I mean like the 90s, and you called someone on the phone, like you picked up a landline, if you've ever seen one of those,
Beep, boop.
and you rotary dialed something.
Whoa.
We had a rotary dial when I was a kid.
We're talking 90s. All right, you had a 56 key modem, and you dialed someone, AT.
Yep, AT.
Right.
So the ringing sound you hear in the phone actually means, like, that is a part of the SLA of the phone network, that the destination phone is ringing.
I thought the destination phone was actually making those noises and sending them over the phone line to you.
I'm pretty sure that
and then
wasn't...
if you called different places, you heard different rings based on what phone they had.
Pretty sure that wasn't actually true in the 90s, but I'm not actually that familiar with the previous iterations of the phone system.
Like when the person picks up the phone, they start talking, and you hear, and their voice gets sent over the line. But before then, the phone that has now received a call and ringing out loud is also sending ringing noises
What's crazy
over the line to you.
Is my freshman year at RIT...
I could be wrong, but that's what I thought.
My freshman year at RIT, I actually took a whole class on this stuff, and I mostly forgot it all because it's literally irrelevant to the modern world.
Yeah, unless you're setting up an asterisk server, which you're not.
But, like, the sound that a phone makes when you try to call someone and the phone's busy, like that dee, like all those things are very well defined, and there's rules about them, and more importantly, there's laws about them.
Yep.
So this story is fascinating, and I'm only going to skim the details because partly there's a broader story I want to talk about. The rough story here is that T-Mobile was caught faking the ring sounds that come back.
Why would you want to fake the ring sound?
Because the old phone network, the hyper-reliable phone network with all those mechanical relays and everything, it's really expensive to run, and really, really, really expensive to run in shit-ass rural burg, like middle of nowhere Arizona.
Right, but it's still there. You connect someone to it. What's the big deal?
To a degree, but there's a lot of things going on the phone
T-Mobile
systems
doesn't have
right
to pay
now.
for it. Whoever's in that area pays
So
for it.
part of the reason that worked is there was a limited number of phone companies, and the infrastructure was relatively simple, and they all sort of followed the same rules. But in the modern world of the internet, there's a lot of ways to connect calls. Most people are using cell phones exclusively, and it might just be that a cell phone trying to make a call, going through all these different networks that are run by all these different private companies, might time out or otherwise not make it to some shit-ass rural phone somewhere that still has some old physical infrastructure. So rather than...
I don't know. Every time I've called a landline, it works.
I'm trying to think of the last time I called a landline that wasn't like an 800 number.
Do you live in a farm in the sticks and you have a telephone? Let us know. We'll try to call you.
We will both try to call you. First come, first serve.
Like, you need to be in the way sticks. Way.
Yeah.
And you have a landline.
Post in the forum. We'll decide if you're sticks enough.
Yeah.
But basically, there's a bunch of things going on because a lot of the phone networks in rural areas are selling numbers in those areas to companies that then provide telephony services to other areas because it's way cheaper to connect, or the infrastructure those phone numbers run on is subsidized by old federal nonsense. So that's why you can go to all these services and pay like $20 a month and get as many 888 numbers as you want and just like route calls everywhere.
All right.
But what this means is this is a lot of the SLA of the phone network is starting to fail.
You still haven't explained why T-Mobile would fake the ringing noise.
Because,
why does T-Mobile give a shit?
Because T-Mobile tries to connect to some destination.
All right, so I have T-Mobile phone,
Yeah.
and I'm in New York City with my T-Mobile smartphone.
So
I have my T-Mobile iPhone, and I call the person who lives in the sticks who's listening to this show.
So
why does T-Mobile give a shit? Just connect the call.
So yeah,
Why would you fake the ringing noise?
So they're trying to connect the call,
Okay.
but the circuit might not actually be open to that destination for a significant amount of time because of all these complications in the
All
way.
right, why does T-Mobile care? Just let me wait.
So you call.
You always, I'm used to that, where you call and like there's a silent noise and you go, huh, why isn't it ringing? And then eventually it rings. That happens.
Yeah, so it might have been too long, or they didn't want to worry about it. It was much easier to just always start playing a ringtone back at whoever called, while separately you're trying to connect.
Okay. Why would you do that? Just let the
Why
person
indeed? I'm not T-Mobile.
Let
I
the
can't
person
say.
just let the person wait.
Well,
I don't understand the benefit to T-Mobile.
So
of doing
if I
this.
try to call anyone and I don't hear a ring like right away, I just hang up. I just give up
Why
immediately.
does T-Mobile should like that?
Yeah,
Well, I
but
don't understand the benefit to T-Mobile of
I don't
playing
know.
the
I'm
ringing
not
noise.
T-Mobile. I don't know why they went down
Well,
this
that's
road.
key to understanding the story because that's the thing they did that was supposedly bad, but I don't know what benefit they get from doing it.
Partly, I think it was just to simplify their own infrastructure by not having to track all the way to the end destination if you made it there and when that phone actually started ringing before you come all the way back and play a specific SLA-based ringtone on the other side.
I feel like that's how just the phone system would work by default, and you have to do extra work to make
See,
it
no,
work this other
it's
way.
not how. Yeah, that's not how it works anymore. It's way more complicated than it used to be, and frankly, that SLA is probably fundamentally obsolete. But it's still regulated.
Mm-hmm.
It's still part of the FCC rules. The rules about how phones work are very strict.
Mm-hmm.
And the meta point I want to make is that I think the reason it took so long for anyone to even notice or do anything about this is that most people who use cell phones don't give a fuck and rarely, if ever, make phone calls.
Yes.
And when they do, they're almost always calling someone else who's also on a cell phone.
Yes.
So the reason why this issue made it as long as it did is partly that people like us don't call people. And if we do call people, I use modern technology like the internet, and I don't try to call a landline.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
In
think
the sticks.
I don't think I've tried to call a landline in a decade.
I've called my mom's phone, which is
My
a
mom doesn't have a
landline.
landline.
My mom does.
No relative of mine has a landline.
Though even though it is a landline, I think it is provided by the cable company. So I think technically it's like a VoIP phone that just has the phone number of the former landline that was in the house. And I think it might even use the landline in the house, like it connects to it. But I think that
I mean, I could get a landline.
But I think that basically it's like an old school phone with an old school landline wire. But then when you get outside to where the connection is, actually it's it's cooking up to some sort of VoIP transceiver.
Well, yeah, I mean, I
thing.
got an RJ11 I could just use, and it plugs into my FiOS box.
Yeah, it's something like that, right? Yeah, I think that's what it is, where it's a landline, but it's not really.
So this is a kind of complicated story, and you can read the article if you're really interested in the details. But basically, T-Mobile's getting fined a pittance for this, and this is the other meta story. The FCC, because American politics is completely fucked right now.
Well, the FCC is just basically the worst.
Yeah, but they're even worse now. Because they're controlled by the Republican Party, which is the bad party in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So the Democrats actually wanted to take much more aggressive action to deal with the fundamental problem of phone companies are ignoring most of America, at least land-wise.
Yep.
And kind of like the post office, we need to provide basic connectivity services to everywhere people live, regardless of how economically viable that is.
FCC or not, Democrat or Republican or not, show me a time where a company was actually fined, and a major company was fined and punished an actual significant amount like they should be. I can only think of like a few handful. Like
so these
completely breaking up AT&T.
Yeah, these things
Enron,
happened
right
in the 80s.
There's not a lot of them, right? There's not a lot of times when companies have actually been punished a proportionate amount.
But
right?
in this case in particular, the Democrats, because basically the Democrats are the minority on this because the Republicans are in power, so they get the majority, meaning they can literally do whatever they want, ignoring the Democrats. So they basically did this like minimum fine and are just sort of ignoring the issue.
Yeah, I don't even understand the point of having the two opposing people there. Just so they can say what they.
Because as the Democrat pointed out,
it's basically just so you can let everyone know that it's bullshit. And I guess occasionally when you agree and you vote, it's just symbolic, right? It's sort of like, well, you can see we disagree, and
no.
we all voted yes, so clearly this is good.
So this is a pretty recent phenomenon in all these committees, where previously there would, more often than you would expect, be some sort of compromise, or they'd argue behind closed doors, and then they just present like they'd vote unanimously or close to unanimous.
I'm pretty sure I remember when they were doing all this stuff during the Obama times, it was usually 3-2 all the time also.
It depends.
I don't...
It's gotten to the point that it is the rule as opposed to the exception in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, the Democrat made a good point that this affected billions of telephone calls to rural areas over the last several years and is a, quote, massively deceptive and harmful violation. And the FCC will not even look at changing these rules, will not even look at updating, like, basic connectivity services. I mean, I would argue that broadband connectivity to these rural areas should be a right, way more important than plain old telephone nonsense.
Well, also, if I was in charge of the world, anytime anyone got fined for anything, the fine would always be proportional to their means and significant. So if like you're a poor person and you
Oh, the Iron Monkey strategy.
yeah, if you're a poor person and you do some crime like littering, I'd be like $1 fine, and they'd be like, no, God damn it, I can't. They'd be pissed off. That's like a whole. It's a big deal, right? And if Bill Gates litters, fucking $100 million fine. Go fuck yourself, Bill Gates, for same littering, but it has to be an amount where he'll be like, shit, right? So $40 million, T-Mobile doesn't even give a shit, right? If you fine any company ever, it has to be enough to make their stock go down and people sell off.
Well, hey, you know what I like to say?
That's the only way the CEO will be hurt, right? Is that the stock has to go down significantly. So what's T-Mobile's like total worth? Like some billions?
Scott, here's my. I'll take this.
25% of your worth.
Here's one
minimum.
This is probably the first time where I'm going to go beyond you. So
you're gonna fine him even harder.
So I generally ideologically disagree with the death penalty for criminal law.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the details of that argument, that discussion.
I mean, death penalty for a company, sure, but I mean,
no, but I'm
I
saying,
don't think you give T-Mobile the death penalty for this.
Oh no, but I'm saying if there is a death penalty for humans, irrespective of whether or not that is the right thing to have, if it exists, and corporations are ostensibly treated like humans for many purposes, then there should also be a death penalty for corporations.
Yeah, but this isn't bad enough to warrant the death penalty for T-Mobile. But there are many corporations, for example, I don't know, any company that like poisons a river. It's like, yeah.
Yep.
I think not only should you have the death penalty, but all the executives should go to real jail.
But the sort of a more subtle point to think about is that whenever you're building new things, it is important that the people who are building the new thing, at least someone building the new thing, understands what the old thing they're replacing did and why it did what it did.
I think
because
they do. They just don't give a shit.
I don't know. It's
They
hard
have
to say.
Also care.
It is very easy to believe that having the ringtone just play through a cell phone was just some engineer saying, well, that makes sense. And not thinking about this like physical relay connected to some copper in Oklahoma.
You're saying it's like an open DNS thing where the people who make open DNS don't care how DNS is supposed to work.
Yep.
And they don't send you an NX for a non-existing domain. They send you some other bullshit.
I wonder if the open DNS people are still mad at us for saying that they are naive, or if they just gave up.
Open DNS is like a big thing now, but
I know.
don't think
Well,
they
partly
care
because
we are.
the ship of well-formed DNS sailed, and we lost that fight a long time ago.
No, actually, everyone else provides well-formed DNS.
Yeah, well, so the TLD's expansion has started to pollute the core idea of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I digress.
Mm-hmm.
That was long enough for the news. So we had like 16 people watching. We got 12 still watching.
We're supposed to have 0 people. What happened? We started out
You
good.
said 0? No, we got one more just joined again. You said 0 right when I started the show.
It started out so good.
Look.
And now there's people.
Here's the graph. You said 0. 2 seconds later, there's 5 people.
Anyone listening to this, you'd be better off going to play some Candy Box on your iPad than listening to this. So go do that.
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
You would be better off walking around outside wherever you live, unless it's cold, than listening to this.
But anyway, things of the day. So the Nintendo Switch is very important because this is the first mainstream console I have bought myself to play games on since the 3DS. And before that was the DS. And before that was Scott and I shared that GameCube that Scott bought. And before that it was the SNES. Like I was very disengaged from consoles for a long time. The Switch is amazing. However, this video is living proof that even a great console pales in comparison to the same experience on a PC when nerds can mod it and mess with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, PUBG, the latest and greatest craze, is a mod, just like Counter-Strike was.
Yep.
And you can't mod anything on Switch, right? Imagine if you could mod Zelda for reals. What kind of all these, like, imagine what games would emerge. Right?
I mean, the thing I'm watching right here.
That would be the next PUBG.
Which is not only a mod mashup of Breath of the Wild with, I think the genre.
I mean, look at the randomizers people make because they can mod, the SNES games. But you can't mod Switch games.
But I think the genre of what is mashed up here is called weird shit rims into.
Oh man, one day they're gonna have, like in the way, like a decade or so, we are gonna have mods of Switch Zelda, and they're gonna do a randomizer. And
Yeah. So Breath of the Wild randomizer. Oh my God, I await the day where I can watch a Breath of the Wild
where the very important item is just in some random ass cave. It's like, oh, that Korok seed. Actually, that was the key item.
That was Ganon.
Yep.
Ganon's just hiding there. Oh, Triforce.
Yep. Anyway.
So yeah, but also it's worth noting that the song on this thing of the day might be one of my favorite songs.
Okay. Well, let me talk to you about another song on the Wu-Tang album Return to the 36th Chamber, sung by the deceased Old Dirty Bastard known as Shimmy Shimmy Ya. Here is an excellent, perhaps better than the original rendition of this song by one of my favorite people, Mum Ra, the Ever-Living, who is unlike Old Dirty Bastard, is ever-living.
This is just too
and
good.
also is also and like Old Dirty Bastard is old, dirty, and a bastard.
I also legit like this rendition of this song, and it gives me a feel.
I don't think you know the original rendition of this song.
I don't know Wu-Tang that well. Like,
okay. Can you name more than one Wu-Tang member that I already named?
Nope.
Okay. Just so we put that on the record.
In terms of Rim's music in that area of music, like things I enjoy, I knew the Wu-Tang Clan existed.
All right.
And when someone has pointed out that's a Wu-Tang song, I've usually thought, that's a pretty good song.
Yeah, there's a reason they're famous. Yeah,
that's about as far as they got. I do want to hear the album that we can't hear yet.
Well. Have you listened to the? Why are you're so interested in listening to this unobtainable Wu-Tang album? Do you realize there are Wu-Tang albums you could already listen to that you have not done?
If you look at my Sonos history, I was listening to a bunch of Wu-Tang Clan a couple weeks ago. I just don't know names of songs off the top of my head.
You don't know Shimmy Shimmy Ya? The classic Shimmy Shimmy Ya?
All right. In the meta moment, the book club book is The Odyssey by Homer.
I'm not working next week, so I'll probably be going on an Odyssey.
So
I've gone on quite an Odyssey already, and also it's shorter than I thought. I just stopped reading it.
So
for
you
a
got
bit.
to Odysseus, right? Or are you still a Telemachus?
I just got to Odysseus.
Okay.
He's on the island.
He's on the island.
I think he's building a raft and making his move.
Okay, so Hermes came and was like, yo, you got to let this guy go. Stop having amazing goddess sex with him every single night.
I don't know why she doesn't have amazing goddess sex with like Hermes, who's a god right there.
One of my favorite subtle points
and Hermes wouldn't say no.
In the Odyssey is when Hermes is like, God damn it, because Zeus is like, Hermes, go deal with this. He's like, ugh. And then he goes, and even he is like, whoa. This island. Whoa. He literally goes from Olympus to this island.
Well, because Olympus,
like,
I mean, Olympus isn't that great. That's the thing, right? Olympus is not like fucking paradise. It's the top of a mountain. It's fucking cold.
Yeah, but it's still opulent and full of splendor. But
it's better than Man Meat World or Hades, but it's not. It's not as good as fucking whatever the name of that island is.
But yeah, so this is the book club. You should read it. It's amazing. Emily Wilson did a fantastic job translating this in a way to where reading it feels like just reading a story and enjoying it for what it is without having to parse through somewhat archaic language.
Yeah, no, they didn't write it. A lot of people, they intentionally write in old-timey ways. And she pointed out, like, these people make an English translation and they write it with like ye old shoppy talk.
Yeah, ye old shoppy talk isn't any closer to old Greek.
Fake old English is only like a couple hundred, even if that's how they spoke, which they didn't. That would only be like 200 years ago. Whereas Homer Odyssey is BC. It's like it
predates the Greek
It
Dark
predates
Age.
the idea of English.
It predates Greece.
So
this is some like
there's no point.
Shit.
There is no point in using old-fashioned sounding language, right? It's not that much closer.
Yeah, at least Shakespeare is a product of its time.
Yeah, Shakespeare. That is how Shakespeare, wrote plays. That might not be how they talked, but that's how they wrote plays. Those are the actual words that Shakespeare wrote. Shakespeare was a person, most likely. We know.
So if you're listening to
we know more about Shakespeare than we know about Homer.
Because you saw us at PAX East because somehow our morning panel
And you're
on
confused
Sunday
that we haven't even mentioned games yet.
filled the room, which it did eventually fill the room. They turned people away. They filled
I
up.
saw some empty seats.
Yeah,
I saw
but,
people leaving. They were smart.
yeah, but there are also a ton of people standing.
Unlike
in
the people
back.
listening to the stream, not smart. They should learn from the people who left the panel.
But if you wanted that list of games, you saw us, and now you don't wonder why we're talking about Linux and all this nonsense. Well, guess what? Geek Nights is 4 nights. Mondays are technology and Linux and stuff you probably don't care about. Tuesdays is where you want to listen.
And not tomorrow, Tuesday. You're going to have to wait a whole week, and maybe even not even then, because I'm not working. Who knows if I'll be in the mood to make a podcast.
Yep, we're on a minor hiatus. But while Geek Nights is coming in and out, while we're sort of getting our shit together, because Scott and I have both made significant life changes recently, and there's a lot we got to deal with. But we are doubling down on the YouTube content because once we do pre-production, Scott and I can go our separate ways and crank it out.
Yeah, thanks to my new computer, I was able to make a video with much greater ease than usual.
So we have.
And my video skills increase slightly each time I make a video.
You know what would really help you out? If you had a knob.
I don't need the knob. The knob is not necessary.
You really underestimate the power of this knob.
I did not at any point feel that I had the need for a knob.
You never wanted to just move something one frame before you did your thing to it?
No.
I don't even use my keyboard, just a mouse and knob, and I can do almost everything. It's amazing.
I learned the keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah, my keyboard shortcut. This does more than I got a shuttle, and I got a. Well, anyway,
I have a mouse wheel. I'm a mouse.
Yeah, mouse
and
wheel.
I have left and right arrows. And
Not enough.
If I hold shift and push the left and right arrows, it goes even faster.
Yeah,
and then I have markers, so I can just push up and down and go boop, boop, boop,
yeah,
boop,
I can just
exactly
turn,
to where I
I
need
can
to go.
just turn this shuttle, and the speed just varies in an analog fashion.
I can just push the up and down arrow to go to the exact spot I need to go.
Your timeline is much simpler. You want me to send you what a Geek Nights Presents Utena project looks like? The like nested sequence upon nested sequence and templates everywhere.
I think I'm good.
But anyway, so our video judging and reviewing all of the anime that's coming out in the spring that we have not yet watched.
The spring season that has already begun.
We already reviewed it all, and the video is on YouTube.
We previewed it all?
We reviewed it.
Sure.
We're rarely wrong. Even though we don't, it seems like we don't know how all that Persona nonsense is linked together.
Now I do.
But I don't think the Persona fans even really understand it.
No, they explained it to me that it's like, if they're correct, I'm trusting them, right?
Yeah.
That it's sort of like Final Fantasy, where it's not linked together. They just all have sort of like some similar themes, like all the Final Fantasies have chocobos. But Final Fantasy X has nothing to do with Final Fantasy VI, other than they both have chocobos, right? Or Moogles or whatever, right? So Persona's like that, which is actually good news, because I was basically avoiding Persona completely. Because I thought it was all connected. But now I realize, I can just go to any fucking Persona thing. I don't have to give a shit. And maybe that actually makes you more likely to check one out.
I watched a Let's Play, like partially, of Persona 4, like just a little bit of it. It looks pretty good. Like I feel like we could enjoy that.
I mean, I think it's basically just an RPG that looks like an anime, right?
Yeah.
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 So.
I feel like we should play Yakuza games before we play these.
Sure, whatever.
But the other video that's on YouTube is that panel, the 40 tabletop games you need to play from PAX East 2018 in glorious 2K.
Whoa.
Because you don't need 4K when it's just us standing
I only
on the
did
stage.
1080p's because I'm like, I don't give a shit. Who
I did-
needs
you know
to
why
see
I
my
do
face in 4K?
You know why I do 2K?
I recorded it in 4Ks, but I put it out in 1080p.
I do 2K because I did some zooms.
Plus,
so-
none of the other content other than the image of our face was 4K resolution, so it would have been kind of silly.
But I did it because when I'm doing the picture-in-picture, like when we're talking the slides down here and when the slides up, we're down here, it means if someone does have a nice monitor, that little area will be like 1080p or at least 720p, depending on how big I
Well,
made
yeah,
it.
because that content was 1080p to begin
Exactly.
with. None of the images of anime that I had were 1080p.
Yep. So it is on YouTube, and you can watch it, and maybe you learn a lesson about if you don't go to a Geek Nights panel at a con, it's probably just going to be on YouTube later.
That's right. You shouldn't show up, and you should basically consume none of our
You
content.
should tell people who don't know about our shit to go to the panels. So one, we don't waste our time talking to people who already know who we are. And two, that way you can get them to go there, and then they'll see the same panel, and you don't have to tell them all the games. Or whatever it is we talked about in the panel.
You should just tell them to watch the YouTube video on fast forward so they can waste as few time in their life as possible.
But
and then they can go play games with that extra time.
it's a catch-22, because if everyone learns that lesson and no one goes to our panels, then we'll have to do what we're doing for these anime panels, because we don't go to anime cons anymore, and record them in our houses, which is way less fun and doesn't get us free badges to conventions.
I'll just enforce.
We're gonna get to we're gonna get to a point in the future to where no one goes to panels at any convention because they're all on YouTube.
Good.
Except anime cons, because you can't put any of that stuff on YouTube because the content ID immediately takes it down.
Yeah.
All right. Someone said they would donate if we did a special where we live stream you trying to edit an episode of Geek Nights together.
I mean, I would just take the MP3 file, and take a wave,
Yeah.
turn it into an MP3, and just drag it to upload.
Okay. You're not going to edit? You're not going to do all this?
I'd go and get the song, and I'd put it at the beginning.
Yeah. I got scripts that do all that semi-automatically.
I just get the other song and put it in the middle. I wouldn't do the song at the end.
We can live stream you editing a Geek Nights Presents Utena together. Those take me like 4 to 8 hours to put together, all told. Used to take me a lot longer, but now I got the
I would
knob.
just not put in the video of the Utana show.
Yeah, that's not nearly as fun.
I would just take the recording of us, cut out when I sneezed or whatever.
Yeah. How you going to find it? Do you know how to find a sneeze?
I'd watch it.
Oh, see, that's the thing. I don't watch.
Okay.
This is where you get good at editing.
You just know the moment I sneezed.
You can tell by looking at the waveform usually, or I can use there's some functions you can use to like find when a sound occurs again.
I just watch it on fast forward and push the M button whenever there's a thing. And then
the knob lets me do that much easier.
Okay.
I have different levels of fast forwarding.
I mean,
Anyway.
I just need one level of fast forwarding.
Also, you got to go through the U10 episode and find all the clips that you want. Make the
Yeah, I'm saying I
subsequences.
wouldn't do that part.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. That's why you don't need the knob. You're not doing anything complex.
I don't need to do anything complex. It's not making any more views to do something complex.
I think it is. If those early episodes did not had all the U10 clips, I feel like people wouldn't have watched them.
Mm-hmm.
I do not watch anything on YouTube that is someone talking about some anime unless they're also illustrating things with actual clips from the show.
I don't watch anything on YouTube. Someone talking about some anime.
I do sometimes. Sometimes.
Mhm.
All right. So destroying data. We talked a lot about backing stuff up. I don't think we've talked recently about destroying things.
Well, part of it is that in most cases, not all cases, but most cases, I find it morally reprehensible to destroy data.
I have chat logs of every IM conversation I have ever had since the ICQ days.
Right. I mean, if you think about
Every single conversation I've ever had. I have the exact conversation when Scott and I talked online for the first time.
Right. So now a lot of people might think like short term about destroying data, right? Something like RIM's chat logs, right? And first of all, just because you don't destroy the data doesn't mean you have to distribute the data.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a separate conversation.
Right, but, you
that
know,
data is not on the internet. That's not even on the cloud.
Right. I always think about, like the Library of Alexandria. It's like, what a shame it was, right? So when you delete a file, you started to write something and then it's no good and you delete the file. It's like, okay, that was probably worthless. You don't want anyone to see it, but one day you'll be dead. And
Imagine an archaeologist finding my NAS and finding on that NAS the thousands of garbage pictures I took of like New York City and using that as part of their research into what New York City was like 1,000 years ago.
Even the most worthless data that you have created could be worth something. Even something that seems completely like just a text file could be a work of art or historical artifact or who knows what. So I'm usually don't want to delete any data, but there are some things it is okay to delete. For example, child porn. Delete it all, please. Faster the better.
One could make an argument that not deleting it allows AIs, expert systems, and law enforcement personnel to use the data from it to find
Let us not get off topic.
perpetrators.
Let us not get off topic.
Just saying, there's a project out there where they ask people to take pictures of hotel rooms they're in. So researchers who have the child porn that like the FBI has gotten when they've arrested people, they can try to find the kids and rescue them.
Point is,
Just saying, even
there
the
are
most
cases-
reprehensible data may have an intrinsic value.
anyway, deleting data is usually bad, but sometimes
Well, there's two.
you do have to delete some data.
Well,
For
so let's go-
example,
there's three different levels of deleting data. On one, do you have data that is local that you are trying to destroy so no one ever gets it? Versus do you have data that you don't care about preserving necessarily versus did you publish data and you're trying to unpublish it?
Well, that's not deleting. That's unpublishing.
True.
But anyway, okay, so the most basic case of deleting data is my phone is running out of room, right?
Yep.
So obviously, just go to listen to some old episode of one of 100 episodes of GeekNights about backing up, back it up somewhere else, and delete it from your phone.
Now,
Same thing applies on your computer. It's like, oh no, my computer's hard drive is full, but I need to save this information. Buy another hard drive, save it somewhere else, and then delete it from the place that's full.
like
By pushing the delete key.
I keep every photo I take on my phone goes into Lightroom basically forever. They're tiny files, and they own a Google Photo forever because they're tiny files.
I got it backed up in 3 clouds. Remember, cloud means other person's computer, and also my NAS, and also my computer, and whatever.
Yep. Because I might want that data someday. The incremental cost to me of keeping that data approaches zero on a per.
If you add them all up together, actually, it adds up to pennies a month, which adds up to dollars, which becomes significant.
Yeah, but the way I preserve that stuff is using mostly free services.
Anyway. So there's that. That's normal deleting, right? You're not actually deleting the data from existence.
You're deleting it from one place.
You're deleting it from one place. Okay, so
Yeah.
now I've got something I need to actually delete from existence. Why? Well, I'm selling someone this hard drive, and I've backed everything up. I'm not deleting it from existence, but
Yep.
I need to make sure that whoever gets this hard drive can't recover any of that data.
Yep, and that's mostly what we're talking about right now.
Right. And in that case, you need a tool that has existed for a long time that is still probably the best tool called DBAN.
So
named after the guy who made it, Derek.
Derek's boot and nuke. Now,
It boots and it nukes.
when I was young, I knew this was called DBAN, but I always assumed that stood for something fun.
When you
better.
boot it, it says right on the screen, Derek's boot and nuke.
Yep.
It's not hiding its name somehow.
So, the first time I actually had to use it was way back. I worked at IBM.
I didn't know about it till RIT, and that's when I used it.
Yeah, at RIT, I was a co-op, and I was working in this department before I got a big job there. And one of the things I had to do is we had all these servers, and they were like, "Yo, wipe out all these hard drives, following these regulations." And they pointed me at this government site of regulations for destroying data, and that's your project. Spend a few months and get rid of all this data. And I was like, can I just take the hard drives down to a drill press? And they were like, no, we're going to reuse the hard drive somewhere. So I did my research, and I encountered Derek's boot and nuke. And I encountered that it actually did all the things that the regulations said I had to do about overwriting the data with random data a certain number of times to make sure there is no feasible chance anyone could get that data back. And I did it. And
a lot of this has to do with the way magnetic hard drives work, where even if you delete files, well, all that does is usually, if you have, say, a normal file system, is delete the pointer to the file in the file system.
Yep.
But if someone were to actually, manually control the hard drive and read all the bits of the file are still there. It's just they're not listed in the file system anymore, so they don't show up, right? So it's like even modern file systems, but also if you do try to delete them or overwrite them, a magnetic hard drive, it's like, well, it's like this sort of zero. You could sort of try to figure out, this sector is a 0, but it used to be a 1.
I guess think of it this way. The analogy I was about
magnets,
to use.
how do they work?
I was going to talk about CRTs, but those are also obsolete.
Yeah.
So it's a similar thing, though, in that say you have you know what it's like? It's like the ass print in a couch. I sit in the couch for a long time. Data's just there, and then I get up. There's a really minuscule ass print there. So someone with a very high resolution camera could theoretically take a picture of that and
figure out who's at. Figure out they could recreate the ass.
Yep. So think of it like that. Now in practice, this is.
I've never actually seen a case of anyone actually doing that.
I read a recent paper showing that it is actually way less feasible than it used to be because of the density of data on modern magnetic drives.
Yep.
Because back when this was a more feasible attack, hard drive had 500 megabytes on it. Nowadays, I have 8 terabyte hard drives sitting up there. So also file systems have changed a lot. Things have changed so much since the last time I cared about this that I actually have to do a little bit of research if I actually want to wipe out data on a large hard drive.
DBAN still works. It's still out there.
Yeah.
It's still going to get the job done.
I have not used it because I haven't actually given anyone a
I've
hard
actually
drive.
heard recently, though, that D-band was like bought by a different company, and then
Yeah.
there's a fork, and then the fork is what you should be using because you don't want to pay this company that bought D-band. I don't know.
So I guess think of it this way. When you, on the high level, and the reason I don't go deep, again, is just that the details are so specific to circumstance nowadays, and I don't even know what the story is with different kinds of SSDs.
The point is, this is only good for deleting a whole hard drive, usually. You booting and nuking, right? What if, say, I'm on my computer, and I've got, some files, and I committed some crimes, but they're good crimes, because I'm a revolutionary type person.
Yeah, you're a Robin Hood.
Right, I'm a good person.
I'll allow it.
I'm doing some anti-government work but my government's evil, and they're going to come and take my computer, and I can't have these files on the computer that I know they're coming to take.
So already you're fucked, and my argument is modern computers, modern file systems, there's a lot of collateral change and circumstantial evidence that appears when you do anything on a computer. There's timestamps, and there's stuff the file system did all over the place. It's pretty likely that no matter what you do to delete something that was previously there, someone could at least figure out that you deleted something.
Oh, no. Shit.
I think that you've already, it's already too late. If you're doing that kind of thing, all the data that is ever involved in that thing should already be in a separate encrypted store somewhere.
All right, so I've got a separate encrypted USB stick.
Yep.
Okay.
Deleting the keys to decrypt it is the same as deleting the data. Yeah, because look at how modern BitLocker style malware works. It doesn't delete your files; it encrypts them. And if it doesn't give you the key to decrypt it, the data is gone. There's no way to get it back. It might as well be deleted. It's arguably better.
It's like this: you go to someone's house. You replace the lock on their front door. You can't get in the house.
Yep.
But you can change the lock on their front door, or you can actually install another door in front of their front door that has a lock on it.
Yep.
And that lock is 100% unlockable without the key.
Magic lock.
It's a perfect magic lock. And now you eat the key and you threaten to not poop it out.
Yep.
unless or dissolve it in acid or something, unless they give you money.
So in the modern era, companies...
And now no one can ever get in that house at the end. They have to smash the house.
Most companies have some sort of data retention policy and rules for how they'll delete stuff. It seems like a lot of people either don't pay that much attention to what they've documented or they don't worry about it that much. And I don't know how much of a concern it really is, because from what I've read, the feasibility, if you just delete files and overwrite a hard disk with zeros, do it like a DD and just write zeros over everything on a hard disk. I don't know if it's actually feasible for anyone other than a government operator that's well-funded to even attempt to get that data back.
Yeah, and I don't know, an SSD, what, really? Especially if that drive keeps getting used. Because think of it, if you're doing, data retention operations at, a corporation, what you're doing is getting rid of old customer data, probably, right?
Yep.
You're only keeping it for a certain amount of time, and then you're clearing it out. It's okay, we'll keep your track of all your transactions and all the things you bought only for a year, and then we'll get rid of them, right? Something like that. So that if anyone busts into our database and there's a leak, which, we're, of course, not going to have a leak because we're not stupid like all the other people who had leaks, like Equifax and whatever.
Yeah.
But if there is one, or if, say, there's an internal actor at the company who's evil and starts poking around the database, they'll only get the last year of data and not your full world history. But you know what? If you just delete those if you just do delete everything older than a year, those are the same hard drives in the same server. All the new information is going to just start filling in that space over time. You're going to be okay. You can just...
Probably. I think what it comes down to is, as much as this feels like it should be a very technology-focused episode, the reality is that unless you work at a company with a policy and some real reason to care, it generally doesn't matter, because as a consumer, just run something like D-Ban and then just sell the hard drive. It'll probably be fine.
Yeah, I mean, at that company with the data retention policy, a hard drive in the sand crashes or something, right? Or whatever they use, their storage array.
Yep.
You take it out, you put a new one in, and then you make sure that before you put the old one in the garbage, you do the D-Ban equivalent to it, right?
Most of the companies I've talked to about this over the years prefer physical destruction of those situations.
That's perfectly fine as well.
Drill press through the platters, which theoretically, if it's just a drill press through the platters, someone could pull the platters out.
Well, if it's
and
a magnetic, but if you take an SSD and put a drill through it,
yeah, unless you miss the persistent storage in there.
well, I think you open it up and you find the right spot and just like shoot it with a gun or something. I don't know. It's like, you could actually just rip that one chip off and throw the.
But I guess the it's not a technology question, it's a procedures question. If you need to delete data, you need to do the research and come up with the risk-reward ratios and procedures you could follow. And the most important thing about deleting data is having an audit history of when and how you deleted the data, so that if someone recovers the data in some crazy way in the future, you at least have proof that you did what you said you did and that you asserted that it was good enough at the time.
Yeah, it's a lot like, paper shredding, right? It's like, yeah, if you just buy a paper shredder at, Office Depot or whatever, your Staples or Amazon, and put a piece of paper in there, a lot of crazy nuts are like, oh my God, those cut the paper in a certain pattern, and the governments know how to put together.
Got to get a cross shredder. And yeah, if the piece of paper is like the names of your spies in North Korea, yeah, maybe you should use a cross shredder and then burn it. But if it's my bank account statement,
the regular shredder I got from Amazon for $15 is perfectly
and the
fine.
raw chicken that it's in the garbage with is probably sufficient.
My shredder has its own trash bin. It's like its own thing. It doesn't mix with the.
Oh yeah, but I would just dump it in with the kitchen stuff.
Okay.
Why not?
Stink it up?
Yeah. Stink it up.
Help ward people away from your shredded whatever.
I don't think anyone's digging through cat litter to figure out a bank statement for me.
No. Like big companies, what they do is they usually get the visiting shredder, right? Yep. They put all their shredding stuff in these bins with locks on them, like padlocks that could easily be busted because it's a plastic bin. And then once a week or so, the plastic bins go downstairs and there's like a tractor trailer with an enormous shredder of industrial nature in it. And it dumps out the bins into the shredder. And it's such a way that even the shredding guys who are driving the truck can't even see what's in there. And it shreds that shit like, baby, big time.
Now, I get the impression that a lot of the stories of someone got a hard drive and got data off of it are literally just thought nothing was even done. Like the hard drive just stopped working and someone threw it away and didn't even try to deal with the data on it.
They also, you can even get a shredder to put the hard drives in. I'm sure a real big one. Right?
I have used that kind of shredder before. They are terrifying to be around.
Don't put any human flesh or any flesh period anywhere near the entrance hole.
Yep.
Use a long stick to drop the hard drive in. One of those grabbers.
What this comes down to is if you just do basic due diligence to delete data from hard drives before you give them to people. And if you can't do basic due diligence, destroy the hard drive rather than give it to anyone. And that's probably enough. And if you can't even do that, then all the data on your hard drive is probably still there and easy for anyone who gets that hard drive to get.
If they wanted to.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll just install Windows and treat it like a clean hard drive and they won't ever look at it.
Okay,
so now we'll talk about not so much deleting, but Rim wanted to talk about unpublishing, right? So the first, obviously, we talk about unpublishing. It's because you can't. It's not possible to do this.
Yep.
Right? As soon as you have some bits, if you send those bits out onto the internet somewhere, right, guess what? You might as well have just broadcast them to the whole world. Deal with it.
So case in point, my crazy archive of everything, it's on my NAS. And as a result, it is also mirrored onto Amazon Glacier.
Okay.
But it's not published because it's encrypted up there. So yeah.
It was encrypted before it was sent there.
Yep.
And it's sitting there encrypted. So yeah, someone could get those encrypted bits, but because the keys are here, it's not actually published. You don't need to unpublish it because even if Amazon people open up Glacier and get the files out, they got a bunch of random nonsense.
Mostly what this comes down to is the thorny question of if you have data on a service and you want to stop using that service, how do you know they actually remove your data if they even do?
You have to trust them.
Yep. There's no way.
The cloud is someone else's computer. So I have my private photos on someone else's computer. I asked them to delete them. They say they did. The end.
Yep. And you might say, oh, but what about things like Snapchat that you have to trust them? That's it. You still have to
You're
trust
just
them.
going on their word.
Did you look at the code? You know what they're doing?
Unless you, even if you see the code, how do you know that's the code that's running on their server?
Yep.
They could have just shown you some other code.
Look at Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and all
if
that.
they let you come into their office and look at their server and examine it, how do you know that that's the server that's actually being used? It's not some phony setup.
I mean, look at GeekNights. Like, we won't even remove comments in the old forum. That is archived forever. If you post it in there, like, tough nuts.
Yep.
If you really had, like, I guess if someone came to us with, like, a serious problem, like being stalked by something, we might go back into that database and, like, change the name on an account.
I mean, people could change their own names on their accounts. So, like, people had done that where I was like, no, I'm not deleting anything. Sorry, I want to help you, but, you know, that's not a way that I can help you. They just changed their username to make it so that anyone searching for their old username wouldn't find them.
But I guess, Scott, here's the question.
And then they closed their account and stopped posting. And it's like, okay.
If I delete my Flickr account, let's say, should Flickr be legally obligated to delete all my shit?
I mean, if we're in charge of writing the law, it depends.
Because at the same time, running a forum, I don't want to delete cool data.
No, right? Someone took a cool photo in your Flickr, right? And it's like, well, you know, I kind of don't want to delete that photo, right? The whole world should be able to experience that photo. It's so awesome. And this person who previously had already shared it with the world now wants to unshare it with the world.
I like the idea of a new class of copyright. I just thought of this now.
Okay, I'm sure it's a great idea you just thought of now.
So here's my basic idea, because this is kind of like something that, so I want to, when I die, and this is in my will, but I got to update it because it's kind of old.
Mr. Will over
Basically,
here.
a public domain's mine to all my email account. Everything. Fuck it. Here you go.
Yeah, you got to
The world can read every email Rim ever sent.
Well, I mean, I got, like, you know, instructions like, here is how to get into every one of my accounts and get all my stuffs. And, you know, because someone might need my emails to manage my stuff when I'm dead.
I like the idea of there being a class of copyright law above and beyond public domain, maybe called like the public trust or something, or the public time trust.
These things probably exist.
No, but imagine, there would have to be a government-run service. You can't trust some tech startup to do this.
Send it to Internet Archive. Say archive.
No. I want the ability to basically send data to a government service that is encrypted and unlocks some number of years after your death. And there's laws protecting it. So you could say, here's data.
Why don't we start that service and then not actually unlock anything because the dead people can't sue?
That's not a bad idea. That's like selling rapture insurance.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do like the idea of like services that get users' data being obligated to unpublish it, at least from the things they control, if someone quits their service. But I also like the idea that like 50 years after that person's death, that data is out again. Like, get past the point where it's likely to harm people and have a way to put data into the public trust on a time-delayed fashion.
I think it's more like we don't need that because, look, if someone posts a cool YouTube video and it's cool, it's worth seeing, and then they decide that they want to delete it from the internet, like there's that guy who deleted all his code from the internet or whatever a long time. You know, there've been a few guys like that. Guess what? It's out there. Everyone's got it. It's too late.
Yeah, but how do you know what we've
if
lost?
It was worth
Scott,
keeping.
We've never been able to find that fuck his head thing. Remember that?
Why didn't you save it?
Because it was some Flash thing, and I didn't save it.
Why didn't you save the 8 people going gaga?
I do have that on a hard drive that's dead, and I'd have to pay someone.
Why didn't you back up?
Because that was a time when I didn't have any money.
Different time, you understand?
That hard drive only holds a gigabyte.
One whole gigabyte.
One whole gigabyte.
Whoa.
And actually, almost everything else from that hard drive was backed up.
Except for the most important file.
Yeah. We don't have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
You need it?
I can't find it.
Good luck.
I found a similar but different video. I'm just saying, there are things I remember that are gone.
There are things that are good to be gone. I said, I think it's immoral to delete data, but not all data.
Well, we were talking the other day. We were talking this morning too. There's how do you delete something from your own brain? Because we knew a gentleman, well, we can end the show on this, an RIT who...
With a hammer.
Who was so vile that we agreed as a group that he would only be referred to ever as he who shall not be named, in the hopes that we would all eventually actually forget this person's name.
I thought we were just saying he who shall not be named because A, it was funny, and B, it was to remind you how gross the person
But
is.
I legit wanted to forget his name.
Oh, I didn't.
And I did.
Okay.
I could not recall his name.
I'm 90% sure the name I told you is correct.
I know, and I'm almost mad because I may have actually forgotten him. I may have deleted the information from my
I remember
own
what he
brain.
looks like. I could spot him on the street.
I vaguely remember what he looks like, but I've morphed him with another person who I do remember their name a little bit because they had similar physical attributes.
Mm-hmm.
That person, we both know that person's name.
Okay.
First and last.
All right.
But the name you said, I don't actually know if that's the real name.
Pretty sure it is.
We'll have to ask Pete, who is the keeper of the name, because
You remember Pete's name.
I asked him at the New Year's party if he remembered the name of He Who Shall Not Be Named, and he thought about it for a minute and said, and I quote, "Yes, God damn it, yes, I still remember his name.
He lived with
Do you want to know?" And I said, no.
He lived with he who shall not be named.
Yes, that is true. But I had forgotten, and I might have unforgotten thanks to you.
I mean, it's weird, right? Because I had not thought of he who shall not be named for a very, very, very,
But
very
it's
long
in your
time.
brain. You just need a pointer to it.
As soon as you mention it, it's like, oh, now I remember this person that I hadn't thought about in years.
So think of this. Your brain is a lot like these hard drives where you think something's deleted, but actually you just deleted the pointer to it. But if anything else in your brain points at it, something you haven't thought about in a long time, you'll smell a weird smell, and suddenly your brain's like, oh, that's what that guy's name was. Because you smelled him one day, and your brain remembered that pointer. All right, I think we're done because I'm real fucking hungry now.
I'm so hungry.
Let's stop the show. We had like 20 people watching this one. Why? There's a bunch of comments in here. I'll go through later and see if anyone said anything interesting, but I got to eat something. Oh, my God. I got to do a work thing, actually, in 40 minutes, so I'm going to order some food for myself. Unless you want to sit here for like an hour and a half. You could just go downstairs.